India recently hosted a milestone summit attended by delegations from all 54 African countries. New Delhi wants to showcase India as an alternative partner for trade and investment in the continent. Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced a $10 billion grant over the next 5 years and called for an alliance on global affairs, including reforms at the United Nations. We begin with CCTV's Shweta Bajaj in New Delhi. And Shweta, what was accomplished at the India-Africa Forum Summit?
Well, the fact that the trade minister at the beginning of the summit said this would all be about trade, but let's not forget this particular summit was really heavy on diplomatic ties, trying to reach out to countries which has been ignored for many, many years now, trying to make up for the lost ground really in the African continent more than the deals. The deals, like you mentioned, that one big deal of granting a credit line of $10 billion this is in addition to a $7.2 billion credit line, which was already given in the 90s. A large part of this would go towards infrastructure funding. The other three sectors where India has been powerful in Africa includes pharmaceuticals, infrastructure development, and petroleum products. And that's the reason that you see this, the sectors that you'll see the countries doing another tie-up and making sure that these three sectors, which have been doing well, get more impetus out of that grant that we are looking at.
How does China's economic slowdown play into India's engagement with Africa?
Well, if you look at the figures between India and China, India and Africa's bilateral trade stands at about $77-odd billion. Compare this to China's about 3 times, that's about $200-odd billion. These figures are for the year 2013. So India has a massive catch-up to do, but certain figures given by the India Exim Bank points out that the investment as far as India is concerned has reached $50 billion, which is considered massive for India. Even now, Africa remains a very, very important part as far as India's exports are concerned. Remember, India is not a very export-heavy country. Most of its trade is actually import-led, so that gives it an edge, really, in the country. The slowdown in China, especially in terms of the high cost of labor, is going to help India massively in the next 10 years. There is a demographic dividend that India is trying to use. A number of companies are setting up their base here for that. And most of the exports going from here, starting from the year 2014, have been towards Africa and towards South Asian nations. And India is going to try and use that. But remember, as far as that particular giving incentives or asking countries to set up shop here under that Make in India campaign is concerned, a large part of that is also dependent on bureaucracy, on how India handles the next few years and open up its various sectors and makes it easy for a company to set up. So even as India tries to catch up with China, especially in the African continent, it will depend on how its own economy unfolds in the next few years.
Now, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi made an appeal to African leaders on climate change. What can you tell us about that?
Okay, I'm going to say a couple of quotes that Indian Prime Minister Modi mentioned at that summit. One of that was about the fact that no one can be more conscious of climate change than Indians and Africans. He said that as far as we are concerned, we'll be using solar power. He even went ahead and talked about a solar powered country summit on the sidelines of that big COP meeting in Paris on the 30th of November, saying that few countries that cannot really give in as much as the developed world can should be moving towards solar power.
Shweta, before I let you go, what's all the noise about behind you? Lots of big bangs. What's happening?
Well, that's right. It's the day after Diwali, and the celebrations go on for literally a week here. It's actually not as noisy as you would consider it on the day of Diwali, but noisy enough as people continue to celebrate here in Delhi.
All right, Shweta, thank you very much. That's CCTV Shweta Bajaj reporting from New Delhi.